compared to what's coming. His parents play with him, their smiles warm and full of life. He cherishes this moment, knowing how fragile it truly is, because soon an unthinkable tragedy will strike. He cannot afford to be unprepared. Late at night, he wakes and forces himself to move. Step by step, he stumbles forward, only to fall, but he refuses to stay down. Pushing himself up, he takes 10 full steps. The system immediately rewards him, granting him increased vitality and precious stat points. Even more shocking, it acknowledges his determination by bestowing him with a bronze box, a reward that, in his past life, took unimaginable suffering just to obtain. This only reaffirms his purpose. He must find the first evil and eliminate him before he can grow into an unstoppable force. He will not allow that monster to exist in this timeline. Sitting outside, another quest appears. Hold a conversation of 10 or more sentences. A simple task, or so it seems. His parents would be terrified if he spoke too soon, so he must choose carefully. Scanning the calendar, he notices Thanksgiving is approaching. And on that day, he meets Gia, a bright 4-year-old girl with intelligence beyond her years. In his past life, she was a prodigy, passing the bar exam at a shockingly young age, growing into a woman of both beauty and brilliance. But none of that mattered in the end, because on that day, she vanished without a trace. Maybe if he had been stronger, if he had trained as much as she had studied, he could have saved her. She hugs him, unaware of the weight of his thoughts. And in that moment, he starts speaking. Sentence after sentence, a natural conversation flows between them.
Is your IT team constantly putting out fires? Well, get ahead of the chaos with the Terra's.
Her parents smile, amused by how quickly the two have bonded. Before she leaves, he makes her promise. Tell no one about this. She nods, sealing their secret. With that, another quest is complete. And to his astonishment, it wasn't just any quest. It was the final one of the tutorial. The system presents him with a choice. Skip infancy and childhood? A part of him longs to stay, to spend more time with his parents while they are still alive. But deep down, he knows the truth. If he stays too long, his abilities will develop in ways that might terrify them. He makes his decision. He skips ahead, steeling himself for what's to come. The days of innocence are over. Now, it's time to prepare for the battles that lie ahead. The year is 1997. In a dimly lit underground pit, a hulking opponent charges forward. But in mere moments, he's sent crashing to the ground. Another victory. The crowd erupts, but Sunu barely acknowledges them. He isn't here for recognition. From the sidelines, the organizer watches in disbelief. This guy never loses. He even whispers that Sunu was the one who destroyed Mapo District. Nice work, the man says, but Sunu cuts him off. More. The organizer hesitates. Listen, kid, it's late, and honestly, you're too skilled for this. Your level is beyond pit fights. You're fighting like a world-class pro. Sunu's eyes darken. I won't repeat myself. Either you bring me stronger opponents, or I'll find someone who will. With that, he pulls up his status window. His stats have grown significantly. 87 unallocated points waiting to be used. His body is already built like an adult, his strength and perception rivaling elite athletes. He removes his cap, looking at his reflection. Wounds that should take weeks to heal are already fading, one of the many advantages of being an awakener. He had once been of average height, but now he towers at 180 centimeters. The stats he increased during the tutorial had permanently shaped his body. Still, this is not enough. He remembers the testing site, a brutal proving ground where survival was all that mattered. If he were thrown back there now, even with this power, he wouldn't last. He needs to level up. He's already scouted a place. An F-rank dungeon hidden in a small mountain near Hong City. But raiding a dungeon isn't as simple as walking in. He needs a strategy. First, he has to buy the mountain, blockade it, set up defenses in case monsters escape. The problem? The land alone costs $1.3 million, and factoring in the necessary reinforcements, he needs far more money than he currently has. And that's just the beginning. There are dungeons scattered across the world, hidden from public knowledge. If he wants true power, he has to monopolize them. He scratches his head. He knows the future. Making money is easy. He could earn a fortune in an instant. But there's a problem. He's still a minor. Legally, he can't do anything. What he needs is a proxy. His thoughts are interrupted when a teacher suddenly places her hand in front of his face. "Focus on your studies," she scolds. Middle school lessons? Right now? Impossible. His mind drifts back to the past. 2 of his guild members had betrayed him once. He remembers the desperation on their faces, their frantic apologies, and he remembers the moment he grabbed the spears they had impaled him with, just before he erased them from existence, along with the very ground beneath their feet, all for a damn box. A voice emerges from the shadows. That power just now. That was the insignia of destruction. Sunu turns, his gaze locking onto the man who spoke, Jonathan. His first instinct is suspicion. Another betrayer? But then, Jonathan heals him. A warm energy floods his body as the man says, "With this, my debt to you is repaid." For the first time in a long while, Sunu is left stunned. Is there still compassion in this world? As they exit the cave, Jonathan casually begins talking about Wall Street and the financial market. Sunu listens, intrigued. His country had been in crisis when he was younger. He remembers the '97 financial collapse vividly. Jonathan wasn't just anyone. He had been a trader, a powerhouse in Hong Kong during the Asian currency crisis. He had lived his glory days playing the market like a game of chess. Sitting down, Jonathan smirks. "They used to call me the Wolf of Wall Street," he says, a glimmer of nostalgia in his eyes. Back when money was everything. Jonathan had been a force. His A-rank stats made him the envy of many. But he was a man stuck in the past, longing for the days when fortunes were made with a single calculated risk. Sunu, however, sees an opportunity. At this very moment, Jonathan should be working on Wall Street, affiliated with a finance company that had Wolf in its name. Sunu wastes no time. He digs through records, searching for his old acquaintance. And
My boy, one of the twins, see, one of them's just a touch smarter, so he kind of sends the other one in first, and he's like, "Yeah, that looks pretty big.
Chris.
You go first." Yeah. They know, there's not favourites, right? They love them both, and but one of them is kind of like a crash test dummy. And he's been to the hospital like 5 times.
Yeah.
They've got a room for him. They're like, "You're back, Mr. Hemsworth. Come on, bring him on through." And he's had concussions, broken arm, leg stitches, all sorts of things.
You know what,
and I keep waiting for him to go, "Oh, okay, don't do that again." He doesn't stop. It's just like...
you know what, though? It's going to run the world one day. I'm telling you what.
He's going to run something. He's going to run me off a cliff. My boy, one of the twins, see, one of them's just a
When people talk about SEALs and BUDS, let me tell you what the difference is between Delta Force Selection and BUDS, for example. They canvass the Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, everybody. They only select 100 guys twice a year to try out. My class, when I went through and had 110 guys, 6 of us completed the course, 3 of us got selected. We've had some classes where 1 guy has made it or no guys have made it. And you see it all the time. SEALs, they're all on the beach running around, and they're carrying boats and rolling around the sand, getting wet, and singing and yelling and hollering and crying. But they're doing it as a group. When you go through Delta Force Selection, it's an individual effort. You're not with any group. Every day, all day long, everything you do is by yourself. Moreover, you do not know the standards of performance, right? They don't tell you what they are. Think of this, mountains of Pennsylvania. Today, you're going to start at this point. Your next point, here's a course for that. And then you get to that next point, give you more grid coordinates. You go to the next point, the next point, next point, next point. And now you're walking through mountains, rucksack on your back. It's raining, it's snowing, it's freezing, and you don't know when it's going to end. And when you ask, how much time do I have? Automatic response, do the best you can. But sir, how much time do I have?
Did you know that Chief Keef really hates Lil Durk and especially King Von? When Von died, Keef didn't post anything and is now smashing Von's blood sister. Not to say that when Keef was on the come up, Von and T-Roy robbed him and stole his jewelry.
Keef don't like that, bro. Von and them stole all his shit back in the day. Boss Top and all of them, they broke in there and stole his jewelry. They all was in California or whatever. And they robbed him. Like when Von died, did he post him? He out here fucking the shit out of his sister. Hey, come on now. Make it make sense. Like, what the...
What do you think? Is Keef doing the right thing? Did you know that Chief Keef really hates...
I just killed a man, she's my
Finally finds him, there's no mistaking it. Jonathan's face carries no trace of despair, but Sunu recognizes him instantly. Without hesitation, he writes an email. A simple question: is the Thai bot currently overvalued? At this time in history, Jonathan had been speculating that hedge funds were planning an attack on Thailand's currency. But he was never fully certain. If Sunu plays this right, he can reshape everything. Jonathan responds quickly. No, the Thai bot is not overvalued. Sunu smirks. Liar. Jonathan knows the truth. He's just pretending he doesn't. Sunu fires back another email. A carefully worded message, just vague enough to intrigue him. What I meant by overvalued is, couldn't someone just leverage that? And just like that, Jonathan takes the bait. Almost immediately, a response arrives. But this time, it's not a simple answer. Who are you?
This game, you're not ready for.
Who are you affiliated with? Sunu leans back. Perfect. This is what he needed. Now, the real game begins. He writes another email, strategically laying out his thoughts. He warns that Asia is a prime target for hedge funds, predicting that an attack on the Thai bot will happen within a month. But Thailand? That's just the beginning. Jonathan reads the message, eyes widening. Could it be true? Right now, Wall Street is in a volatile state. And whoever this mysterious sender is, they understand exactly how this world works. Jonathan sees this as a test. He replies, leaving an open invitation. My office is always open. Here's my contact information. Sunu expected this. Jonathan is a shark. Once he scents blood, he won't let go. And now, a financial war is about to be declared. In April 1997, the hedge fund assault on the Thai bot will begin. And this time, Sunu will be ready.
Thank you to all our Patreon VIP members who support us and get access to up to 16 episodes early. Link in the description.
In 1992, it took just 50 days for a single hedge fund to bring down the British pound. The collapse sent shockwaves through Wall Street, reinforcing a dangerous belief that any currency could be crushed within the same time frame. So when the financial elite set their sights on Thailand, they assumed history would repeat itself. The Thai baht would fall in less than 2 months, but Sunu knew better. While training, he recalls how the Thai baht didn't fall so easily. Unlike the pound, it resisted. For over 3 months, the Thai government and its banks fought back, even landing severe blows on the hedge funds. But in the end, their defenses crumbled, and on July 2nd, the currency collapsed. By then, Jonathan had sent him over 10 frantic emails, each one concerning investment goods obtained by betting against the baht. Sunu finally replies, "If you have an investment that bets on the baht increasing instead, then we'll talk." Jonathan freezes. Bet on the baht increasing? The financial products he had sent were exclusive, offered only by high-level VIPs. For Sunu to even suggest that the baht could rise meant one of two things. Either he was a fool, or he knew something the rest of Wall Street didn't. And on top of that, he wanted 51% control of the investment deal. Jonathan leans back, running a hand through his hair. This guy must be a scammer. He tidies his desk, ready to dismiss the entire conversation, then instinctively reaches for the phone to call other VIPs. But something stops him. He hesitates. Then, instead of making the call, he sends another message. "How did you come to the conclusion that the hedge funds would lose?" Sunu's reply comes within seconds. "I never said the hedge funds would lose, but the Thai banks have countless strategies at their disposal. My conclusion? The baht will rise, at least in the short term." Jonathan nearly chokes on his drink. Wall Street is betting billions on the baht collapsing in May. The biggest firms are certain of it, using the situation to strengthen their ties with VIP investors. But if the baht doesn't fall, there will be hell to pay. Jonathan starts second-guessing everything. Does he warn them? Does he pretend he knows nothing? He attempts to voice his concerns, but his boss immediately shuts him down. "Ridiculous," the man scoffs. "Do you realize how stupid you sound?" Jonathan clenches his fists, swallowing his frustration. He looks at his research, the unanswered emails, the clues Sunu had given him. Finally, he types out a response. Wolf Corporation has no intention of developing this kind of investment in the first place. Sunu doesn't hesitate. That's why I'm suggesting you go independent.
My boy, he wanted the twins.
Jonathan leans.
He wanted them to. He's just a touch smarter, so he kind of sends the other one in first, and he's like, "Yeah, that looks pretty big.
Chris.
You go first." They know, there's not favourites, right? I love them both, and but one of them is kind of like a crash test dummy, and he's been to the hospital like 5 times.
Yeah.
They've got a room for him. They're like, "You're back, Mr. Hemsworth. Come on, bring him on through." And he's had concussions, broken arm, leg stitches, all sorts of things.
You know what,
and I keep waiting for him to go, "Oh, okay, don't do that again." He doesn't stop. He's just like...
You know what, though? It's going to run the world one day. I'm telling you what.
He's going to run something. He's going to run me off a cliff. My boy, he wanted the twins. He wanted them to... He's missed. It's just...
Back, exhaling sharply. Independent? Giving Sunu 51% control would you go first place. Sunu doesn't know. Finally, he types out a response. Wolf Corporation has no intention of developing this kind of investment in the first place. Sunu doesn't hesitate. That's why I'm suggesting you go independent. Jonathan leans back, exhaling sharply. Independent? Giving Sunu 51% control would be like handing him the keys to his entire future. No one in their right mind would agree to such a contract. You expect me to just hand over control of my fortune? He writes back. Think carefully, Sunu responds. This proposal is valid until the end of May. And then, silence. Jonathan waits. Days pass, weeks, no new emails. It drives him mad. Between his boss belittling him, his peers laughing at the absurd idea of the bot increasing, and his own growing doubts, he feels trapped. But then, the unthinkable happens. The Asian Central Bank intervenes. A $12 billion aid package is sent to Thailand. And just like that, Wall Street is in shambles. Jonathan stares at the news in disbelief. That
Do it now!
That guy was right. The Thai bot rises. He lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. A tear slips down his face. He had the answer right in front of him all along, and no one listened. His thoughts are interrupted when his boss calls for him. The moment he steps into the office, he knows something is wrong. The VIP investors are already there, furious. They had all bet on the collapse, and now they were losing millions. His boss isn't introducing him to help him. He's throwing him under the bus. Jonathan doesn't wait for it to happen. He calmly hands over his business card. Starting today, I'm leaving Wolf Corporation. I'll be establishing my own investment firm. The room goes silent. His boss stares at him, stunned. Jonathan smirks. I know you wanted me gone, so I'm just saving you the trouble. He turns to the furious VIPs. And if any of you are looking for someone who actually predicted this disaster, you know how to reach me. That night, as Sunu finishes his training, a single email arrives. He reads it, then smiles. Jonathan had finally made his move. Sunu types out a short response. Come to Seoul, right now. At school, Sunu feels nothing. Most of his classmates avoid him. His towering physique and sharp demeanor make him unapproachable. But that's exactly how he wants it. He has no interest in building connections. As the hallway empties, a wave of memories crashes over him. A city in ruins. People slaughtered in the streets. The echoes of their screams still linger in his mind. From a distance, his teacher watches him. And suddenly, without understanding why, she starts to cry. Later, at the airport, Sunu meets Jonathan. As they walk to find a place to sit, he notes how strange it is to see Jonathan looking so clean-cut. In his previous life, this man had always been more rugged, unpolished. They sit down. Jonathan wastes no time. You sure took your time, he says, irritation in his voice. After all that, I figured we'd meet sooner. But he knew, from the way Sunu wrote his emails, that this wasn't an ordinary teenager. There was something unsettling about his precision, his confidence. Sunu meets his gaze unfazed. I wrote the emails. Then, casually, he adds, and thanks for coming. Jonathan studies him carefully. How old are you? 19? 20? He lets out a bitter laugh. I came here risking everything. Do you even understand what you've just done? Sunu holds his stare, then asks, do you judge people by their age on Wall Street? Jonathan's fingers tighten around his cup. Sunu leans forward. I won't stop you if you want to leave. But since you came all this way, let me give you a parting gift. He slides a report across the table. Jonathan picks it up, skimming the first few lines, then freezes. His eyes widen. Sunu gestures to the seat across from him. Sit down. Jonathan slowly lowers himself, gripping the document. The Asian economic crisis was inevitable, Sunu says, tapping the table. It was written in stone the moment the US started lending dollars without limit, all while claiming the 21st century would belong to Asia. They raised the 4 dragons only to let them burn. Jonathan stays silent, reading. Sunu continues. Hedge funds didn't cause this. They just saw an opportunity and took their piece of the pie. After a long pause, Sunu finally asks, "So? What do you think of the report?" Jonathan exhales. "You think Thailand is going to collapse?" Sunu smirks. "What did you think before reading that?" Jonathan doesn't answer immediately, because he knows the truth. No one on Wall Street truly knows how this will end. The Thai government had fought back hard. What was supposed to be a one-sided war had turned into a full-blown battlefield. The uncertainty had stretched all the way to July 2nd, the day Thailand finally surrendered. Jonathan shakes his head. The attackers always win in the end. But, he says, narrowing his eyes at the report, there's something missing. Sunu leans back. "I'll answer that for you, but only if you decide to work for me." Jonathan studies him. So that's it. He won't give me the missing piece unless I join him. Jonathan had dismissed him at first because of his age, but now he realizes that was a mistake. Jonathan crosses his arms. "With my money and my record, I already have everything. What exactly do you have?" Sunu raises an eyebrow. "An opportunity. I could have chosen someone else. I still can." His voice is calm, steady. "Even as we sit here, money is being lost, and you know it." Jonathan exhales sharply, thinking, if Sunu was right, if the Asian markets really were about to collapse, then a bet against Wall Street could bring in a fortune beyond imagination. But this was all happening too fast. Jonathan rubs his temples. "I need time to think." Sunu sighs. "Fine, you have until June 3rd. Jonathan blinks. Why June 3rd? He flips through the report again. His eyes suddenly catch something, a pattern, a gradual increase in numbers. He narrows his gaze. "Wait, is this June 2nd? Sunu smiles slightly. "Now all we need to do is calculate how much will be lost in the remaining days." Jonathan leans back, stunned. No one can predict a crash this precisely unless they're a god. His instincts scream at him. This is too accurate to be coincidence. Sunu stands up, turning his back to him. "I'll wait until June 3rd. He pauses, then adds, "If you can't decide by then, consider our relationship over." Then, without another word, he walks away. Jonathan sits there, gripping the report, deep in thought. Is this guy insane? Or worse, is he right? A few days later, Jonathan finally cracks. His answer comes in a single email. "What's the company name?" Sunu reads it, and for the first time in a long while, he smiles. As they sit together, Sunu looks Jonathan in the eye and asks, "Do you regret this?" Jonathan exhales, shaking his head. "Of course I do." He laughs bitterly. "But it's too late now. Your report is too valuable to ignore." He leans forward, eyes narrowing. "I can understand predicting a downturn, but how did you get the exact date?" Sunu simply replies, "Calculations." Jonathan wants to question him further, but he doesn't. What's the point? This kid had been right every step of the way. He wouldn't doubt him anymore. Sunu leans back. "I'll give you the ingredients for success." Jonathan smirks. "And what about the recipe?" Sunu's lips curl into a knowing smile. Jonathan feels his face flush slightly and sighs. "Fine, I'll trust you." He shakes his head, still baffled by all of this. "At the very least, I should know my business partner's name." Sunu gives it to him. Jonathan nods, thinking for a moment. "Then let's call it Jonathan and Son Investment." Sunu immediately rejects the idea. "Leave me out of the name." Jonathan chuckles. "Fine, fine." He leans forward, lowering his voice slightly. "I've got $400,000, every cent I have." Sunu raises an eyebrow. This guy's insane. Giving 51% of everything he owns to a stranger? Either Jonathan is a fool, or he has an unshakable gut instinct. Jonathan tilts his head. "What about you? Got any money to add in?" Sunu shakes his head. "That's why I called you to Korea in the first place." Jonathan studies him. "Why me?" Sunu shrugs. "I found you on the company website." Jonathan laughs, almost in disbelief. "That's it? Disappointed?" Jonathan leans back, smiling faintly. Not at all. Opportunities never come when you ask for them. They come in the strangest ways. Sunu pauses. Those exact words. He had heard Jonathan say them before, in another life. Originally, Sunu had planned to save up his points until he could open a challenger box. But at the last moment, he used them to open a master box instead. His reasoning? Simple. Sell the item, cash out, live in luxury, indulge in every carnal desire until there was nothing left. But fate had other plans. Inside that box wasn't just any item. It was a skill, something that should have only existed in a challenger box. The probability of that happening? Almost zero. And yet, that miracle had been granted to a man who had already given up on everything. After that, Jonathan had walked straight into death. No matter how much Sunu had tried to warn him, he had set off on a path of revenge. And not long after, Jonathan was dead. Sunu blinks, pulling himself back to the present. Jonathan frowns. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Then, smirking, he adds, "Is it because you called me an opportunity?" He leans in. "Well, since I am one, why don't you give me a god-tier calculation?" Sunu's expression turns serious. "If you follow me, it's no questions asked. Are you in?" Jonathan
When
doesn't
people talk
hesitate.
about SEALs and BUD/S,
Yeah.
let me tell you what the difference is between Delta Force Selection and BUD/S, for example. They canvass the Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, everybody. They only select 100 guys twice a year to try out. My class, when I went through and had 110 guys, 6 of us completed the course, 3 of us got selected. We've had some classes where 1 guy has made it or no guys have made it. And you see it all the time. SEALs, they're all on the beach running around, and they're carrying boats and rolling around the sand, getting wet, and singing and yelling and hollering and crying. But they're doing it as a group. When you go through Delta Force Selection, it's an individual effort. You're not with any group. Every day, all day long, everything you do is by yourself. Moreover, you do not know the standards of performance, right? They don't tell you what they are. Think of this, mountains of Pennsylvania. Today, you're going to start at this point. Your next point, here's a course for that. And then when you get to that next point, give you more grid coordinates. You go to the next point, the next point, next point, next point. And now you're walking through mountains, rucksack on your back. It's raining, it's snowing, it's freezing, and you don't know when it's going to end. And when you ask, how much time do I have? Automatic response, do the best you can. But sir, how much time do I have?
Did you know that Chief Keef really hates Lil Durk and especially King Von? When Von died, Keef didn't post anything and is now smashing Von's blood sister. Not to say that when Keef was on the come up, Von and T-Roy robbed him and stole his jewelry.
Keef don't like that, bro. Von and them stole all his back in the day. Boss Top and all them, they broke in there and stole his jewelry. They all was in California or whatever. And they robbed him. Like when Von died, did he post him? He out here fucking his other sister. Hey, come on now. Make it make sense. Like, what the...
What do you think? Is Keef doing the right thing? Did you know that Chief Keef really hates...
He slides a stack of documents across the table. Then sign these. Also, he adds, "You did bring your ID, right?" He slides a stack of documents across the table. Then sign these. Also, he adds, "You did bring your ID, right?" Sunu pulls out a single sheet of paper. "This is the only way I can identify myself now." Jonathan reads it and freezes. 13-digit ID number. It's the equivalent of an American Social Security number. His eyes widen in shock. "You're 13? Sunu sighs. "There's no time to be surprised. Let's talk business. The second week of June. From the 9th to the 13th, the market will drop by 10%. Jonathan listens intently. You think Thailand will collapse then? Sunu shakes his head. Not yet, but it'll start. He taps the table. Remember what I told you. Thailand is just the beginning. Jonathan's face darkens. When the Thai market drops by 10%, fear will spread across all of Asia. Sunu nods. And the hedge funds attacking the bot? They'll start gaining allies. Jonathan exhales sharply. His mind races. The final target, it's Hong Kong. Right? Sunu smirks. Wrong. Jonathan's chest tightens. Then, what? Sunu's voice is calm. Korea. Jonathan shakes his head. That's impossible. Foreign hedge funds can't enter Korea without authorization. You're right. Sunu's gaze sharpens. But Korea won't be attacked by hedge funds. Then what? Sunu leans forward. Fear. Jonathan's breath catches. The fear that will make foreign investors pull out of Korea themselves. His stomach twists. He can already see it. The domino effect, the panic, the collapse. He exhales. Something big is coming. So what's your plan to stop it? Sunu shakes his head. I can't stop it. Jonathan clenches his fists. Then what the hell are we doing? Sunu's gaze doesn't waver. I told you, my goal isn't saving anyone. Then what is your goal? Sunu's lips curl into a smirk. Money. Jonathan stares. Sunu continues. This war will be waged by an alliance of hedge funds, but when it's over, they'll realize something. Jonathan swallows. What? Sunu's eyes gleam. That the real winner was never them. Jonathan grips the table. Then what's the play? We'll bet with 50x leverage. Jonathan's world shatters. His voice trembles. That's insane. If they're wrong, even slightly, they lose everything. Sunu remains unfazed. You understand why, don't you? Jonathan swallows hard. Even if the market drops 10%, it doesn't fall straight down. It goes up and down, and then fear sets in. That's when the real crash happens. Sunu nods. And with 50x leverage, Jonathan closes his eyes, exhaling shakily. If we lose just 1%, we're already down 50%. At 2%, we're wiped out. His hands are shaking. This isn't just a high-risk venture. This is insanity. But if Sunu's data is right, if they execute this perfectly, then they won't just make money, they'll make history. Sunu stands. Everything is in your hands now. Jonathan sits alone in his office, exhausted, starving, but his determination is unshakable. He's going through with this. Days later, Jonathan arrives back in Korea. Sunu sees him walking through the doors, looking as sharp as ever. But this time, he's brought back something even greater. Sunu smirks. You exchanged the money into dollars? Jonathan nods, his hands trembling. But then he lets out a breathless, disbelieving laugh. It's not just 700%. His shoulders shake. Tears well up in his eyes. We made 700 times the original $400,000. Sunu's eyes narrow. How much? Jonathan chokes on a laugh. In the past week, his voice cracks. We made $280 million. Sunu grins. They are filthy rich. From his hotel room, Sunu dials his mother. I'll be staying at a friend's place tonight, he says casually. With that, he hangs up and turns his attention to something far more pressing. Jonathan's miracle. How exactly did he pull this off? Sunu scans the reports, and what he finds is nothing short of astonishing. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Jonathan is celebrating like a madman. We did it! He shouts, practically glowing. I can't believe this! He paces back and forth, exhilarated. In one move, we went from nothing to one of the biggest hedge funds in the game. And it's just the two of us. Sunu, ever the strategist, remains unfazed. If you're not going to sleep, he says, let's talk about our next move. Jonathan smirks. You're really gonna hit me with more god-tier intel already? Sunu leans forward. Thailand might implement a floating exchange rate. Jonathan's celebration slows. Go on. If that happens, Sunu continues, it'll be our D-Day. We go all in, no hesitation. Every last dollar, Jonathan exhales, pacing again. There won't be a rally, Sunu explains. No buying the dip. It'll be pure, one-directional destruction. Jonathan rubs his temples. Well, obviously, switching to a floating exchange rate means Thailand surrendering. He exhales. But how much do you think our $200 million will turn into? Sunu's answer is instant. You mean after we leverage it? Jonathan freezes. Wait, you actually want to go all in? Sunu tilts his head. Why not? Jonathan throws his hands up. Because if we put $200 million against the bot, all hell will break loose. The hedge funds won't just sit there and watch. They'll fight back. Sunu remains calm. Then we'll leave them crumbs. Like I said before, we're the real ones waging war. Jonathan grips his hair. If your D-Day scenario is even slightly off, we lose everything. His voice rises. You're talking about gambling everything we just made. No hedge, no safety net. Just blind faith in the crash. He shakes his head. I can't do that, not unless you're a god or something. Sunu smirks. He pats Jonathan on the shoulder. Relax. There's data we need to put together first. Jonathan sighs, rubbing his temples. What data? Starting tomorrow, Sunu says. We track everything. Foreign exchange reserves, capital outflows, debt structuring. We compare it to July 2nd's historical crash. Jonathan scoffs. You realize data on this scale isn't easy to get, right? Sunu shrugs. We don't need it all, just enough to confirm what we already know. Jonathan crosses his arms. And what if the data contradicts your theory? Sunu leans back. Then we adjust, lower the leverage, push the attack one day earlier, July 1st. Jonathan studies him carefully. You've already planned for everything, haven't you? Sunu doesn't answer. Instead, he drops a casual bombshell. $80,000 should be enough to buy us a meeting with the head of the Thai Central Bank. Jonathan nearly drops his drink. You want me to meet with the Central Bank of Thailand? Sunu nods. Jonathan blinks. Are you actually 13? Sunu smirks. You should take a trip to Bangkok. Jonathan lets out a sharp breath. Jesus, if I mess this up, I might get gunned down. Sunu shrugs. Thailand knows they're about to fall. They're already preparing for the aftermath. His voice is calm. 1997 is going to be our payday. Jonathan swallows hard. So you're saying we go all in? Sunu's smirk doesn't fade. What else? The next morning, Jonathan boards a plane. He's nervous, but his eyes burn with the determination of an awakener entering a dungeon. While Jonathan infiltrates enemy territory, Sunu prepares in his own way. He enters a street fight. His opponent is tough, but not tough enough. Crack! The man screams as Sunu snaps his arm. Gasps ripple through the crowd. From the sidelines, the fight organizer shakes his head. Told you, he mutters. That kid's dangerous. The injured man, teeth clenched in agony, growls. You're gonna pay for this. Sunu grins. Good. That night, he walks straight into enemy territory. A gang, dozens of them, and they're all staring at him like he's insane. This guy actually showed up, one mutters. Another swallows. Does he know how outnumbered he is? Sunu simply cracks his knuckles. One-on-one fights won't raise my stats anymore. It's time to test something. The gang rushes him all at once. Sunu moves like a ghost. 3 go down in an instant. Not a single hit lands on him. But then, a flash of movement. Someone blindsides him. A solid blow slams into his back. Pain flares through his body. He barely reacts in time to shove the attacker away. But another comes from behind and lands a clean hit. The man smirks, tossing his weapon aside. That's it. He's finished. Except, Sunu's not finished. Before the attacker can even react, Sunu grabs him by the throat and slams him into the ground. A grin spreads across Sunu's face. This is what I needed. I can see the openings now. The system practically screams at him to use his abilities. But he doesn't. Not Odin's wrath. Not after what he saw it do. A motorcycle engine roars in the distance. A man, cigarette between his lips, watches them. This is like a damn movie, he mutters. Then he revs the engine and charges straight for Sunu. Too fast. No time to dodge. The bike slams into him. Sunu is sent flying, hitting the pavement hard. Pain explodes through his body. The gang wastes no time. They swarm him. Boots slam into his ribs. Fists connect with his face. He can barely breathe. The man with the broken arm steps forward. I want the final hit. Sunu struggles to his feet. The man smirks, pulling back his leg for a devastating kick. And then, it activates. The man who overcomes adversity. A surge of power rushes through Sunu's body. All of his stats shift to E rank. The fight's not over, it's just beginning. The gang member grips his knife tightly, waving it around in sheer panic. His hands tremble. His breath is ragged. He saw what just happened, and he knows. This is not a normal fight. Sunu doesn't give him a chance to act. Bam! With a single, well-placed strike, the man collapses. Sunu exhales, his body buzzing with power. This trait, it's overwhelming. His stats are rising rapidly, but it's difficult to control. He clenches his fists, adjusting to the surging strength. From the corner of his eye, he sees the biker, the one who led the ambush. The man narrows his eyes, scanning the unconscious bodies scattered around. Then, with an intimidating presence, he signals the rest to attack. They charge. Sunu turns, planting his feet. His fist flies forward. Crash! One of them is sent flying several meters, crashing hard into the pavement. Another man freezes, eyes wide in disbelief. Sunu simply extends his hand. Without a word, the man hands over his weapon. Sunu accepts it, then promptly smacks him in the head with it, knocking him out cold. Finally, his gaze locks onto the biker, the last one standing. Sunu activates Odin's wrath. Boom! The man erupts in a storm of lightning. His body convulses, engulfed in electricity, before he collapses in a smoldering heap. Silence. The remaining gang members stare at Sunu in horror. What? Is he? Their hands shake. Their feet refuse to move. Is he even human? In the hotel room, Sunu leans against the wall, deep in thought. His ability. It doesn't activate from self-inflicted damage. It only triggers when he's on the verge of defeat, when he's truly pushed beyond his limits. He needs to master it, because this isn't just some combat advantage. This is his key weapon against monsters, against beyond damage. It only the remaining electricity. Man, last one standing. Sunu activates Odin's wrath. Boom! The man erupts in a storm of lightning. His body convulses, engulfed in electricity, before he collapses in a smoldering heap. Silence. The remaining gang members stare at Sunu in horror. What? Is he? Their hands shake. Their feet refuse to move. Is he even human? In the hotel room, Sunu leans against the wall, deep in thought. His ability. It doesn't activate from self-inflicted damage. It only triggers when he's on the verge of defeat, when he's truly pushed beyond his limits. He needs to master it, because this isn't just some combat advantage. This is his key weapon against monsters, against the 8 virtues and evils, against the war that's coming. His phone rings, a call from overseas. He answers. Jonathan's voice is urgent. You were right. Sunu's eyes sharpen. Jonathan continued waiting for us. Like you said, the amount of money they took was just over 20%, so it's close. But Sunu isn't thinking about Thailand's current condition. He's thinking about something else entirely. Close? Sunu mutters. Thailand still holds more foreign currency reserves than expected, which means he can't be certain yet, can't be sure if the hedge funds will actually win this war. He takes a breath. Jonathan, he says, voice steady. Any objections to going all in? Jonathan chuckles dryly. I already spent $80 million just to get a look at these documents. At this point, I'd have to be insane to back out. He exhales. But regardless of the outcome, what we're doing is straight up lunacy. Sunu closes his eyes. D-Day is July 2nd. Jonathan pauses, then sighs. I knew you were going to say that. His voice drops to a whisper. If your calculations are right, you already know how hedge funds like Dragon will react. Sunu nods. Yeah. Once Dragon, a representative hedge fund, moves, the rest will follow. It's the same principle as the 8 virtues and evils. Once the virtues take action, their supporting factions will rush in, turning everything into chaos. Jonathan rubs his temples. So, if you're right, we'll take control of every major investment fund in the world, in one single move. Sunu leans forward. Then stop worrying. His voice is calm. Prepare for the attack instead. On July 1st, 1997, Hong Kong officially returns to China. But beneath the political spectacle, something far more sinister is brewing. A financial war is about to begin. It's modern history repeating itself, a second opium war. But instead of opium, the West floods Asia with billions of dollars, crippling their economies. Instead of cannons, they launch currency attacks, destabilizing entire nations. But Sunu knows the truth. Before his regression, Asia's financial collapse led to something far worse. The release of an S-rank dungeon, a sealed catastrophe. And behind it, one of the 8 virtues and his followers. Sunu clicks his mouse impatiently. He hates waiting. If only pagers existed yet. His funds are set. Their total purchasing power? $10 billion, even if they bet everything on Thailand's collapse. They still need someone to accept a trade for it to go through. Will there be enough liquidity? His inbox blinks. A new message. Jonathan, attack preparations are complete. Sunu exhales. His hand tightens around the mouse. He's done this before. Thrown himself into dungeons, knowing survival wasn't guaranteed. But this time, his life isn't on the line. Only money. And the jackpot is right in front of him. This time, there's no bad luck. No system nerfing his efforts. This time, he's the one holding the knife. He takes a breath, steadying himself. Don't get comfortable. It's been less than a year since his return. But his old world feels so far away. He types his final message to Jonathan. My preparations are complete. Then he leans back. Tomorrow, they will clear the biggest dungeon yet. Sunu sat at his desk, pretending to focus on his quiz, but his mind was elsewhere. His eyes flickered to the clock on the wall. 12 p.m. sharp. His heart pounded as he did the mental calculations. There's a 2-hour time difference between here and Thailand. That means, in just 30 minutes, the Bank of Thailand would make an earth-shattering announcement. It would switch to a floating exchange rate system. That's when everything truly begins. His memories of his past life were still vivid. He knew what was coming. Investors and speculators would divide into 3 factions. One group betting on Thailand's inevitable surrender, another wagering that it would hold on until mid-July, and a third foolishly believing that the country would triumph. But Sunu knew the truth. There won't be any third group this time. By inserting himself into the game, the entire financial battlefield would shift. The money others placed on Thailand, surrendering at a later date, would now funnel straight into his hands. The stage was set. The game was already his to win. A sharp voice cut through his thoughts. Sunu, why are you staring at the clock? His teacher's amused tone brought him back to the present. Sunu blinked, plastering on an apologetic smile. Ah, sorry, miss. Just spacing out. I'll focus now. The teacher chuckled, shaking her head. You talk like an old man sometimes. Sunu scratched the back of his head, feigning embarrassment, but inside, he was completely detached from the interaction. I don't even remember her in my original timeline. The clock ticked on, and 12:30 p.m. arrived. Without hesitation, he stood up, grabbing his belongings. He needed to move. Now he strode over to the teacher's desk, putting on his best innocent student face. "Miss, I'm not feeling well. Can I go home early?" The teacher sighed, already expecting this. "Again, Sunu? You've been growing like a weed, yet you're always sick." She narrowed her eyes at him. "You're not skipping to avoid the quiz, are you?" Sunu smirked. "I already got a perfect score, didn't I?" Her lips parted in surprise, then amusement. "Huh, so you usually make mistakes on purpose? Well, I suppose you've earned the right to leave." She paused, then hesitated before asking, "But are you okay? You're always by yourself at school. You're not being left out, are you?" Sunu's expression didn't change, but inside, he felt a small twinge of something. Perhaps nostalgia. Perhaps irony. "No, I'm just the kind of person who prefers being alone." The teacher didn't look convinced, but she let it go. "All right, take care, Sunu." With that, he rushed home. The moment he arrived, he bolted into his room, shutting the door behind him. The ancient whir of the dial-up modem filled the air as he booted up his computer. The screen flickered before stabilizing, and he immediately logged into the market site. Too slow. The information site was already freezing up, bogged down by traffic. He clenched his jaw. He had minutes to act before the window of opportunity slammed shut. A message popped up on his screen. "Jonathan, you online?" Sunu. "Yeah, the site's lagging. Any updates?" It took a moment for Jonathan to reply. The delay only added to Sunu's tension. When the message finally arrived, his eyes widened. "Jonathan, we've made it 300 times already. Total, $60 billion. Sunu's fingers hovered over the keyboard, his heart pounding. Even with his knowledge of the future, seeing the number in front of him felt unreal. $60 billion. A fortune beyond comprehension. He gritted his teeth. "Stay focused." Jonathan continued typing. "Jonathan, the opposition's starting to resist. If we pull out now, we secure our profits. If we hold on..." Sunu could sense Jonathan's hesitation. The man was thinking like a rational trader, but Sunu wasn't just another trader. He was rewriting history. "Sunu, don't worry about them. The announcement will completely shift the tide. Hold your nerve. We settle on my command." Jonathan hesitated, then finally replied. "Jonathan, understood." Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, breaking news. The Bank of Thailand announces switch to floating exchange rate system. Jonathan sent an immediate update. "Jonathan, market shifting. The baht is rising fast, $31 to $33, then dropping again. It's chaos." The fluctuations were vicious. The numbers swung wildly, fortunes being made and lost in seconds. Then came the next report. "Jonathan, 80% settled. Do we hold the rest?" Sunu inhaled sharply. Logic dictated that they play it safe, but he knew what was coming. The crash was inevitable. "Sunu, number clear, all positions. Pull everything, and come to Korea as soon as possible." Jonathan didn't question him. The final transaction was executed, and then the collapse news spread like wildfire. The Thai baht plummeted to a record low. The economic shockwave rippled through all of Asia. The market was in freefall. Investors scrambled, but it was too late. Sunu leaned back in his chair, his entire body tense. Even though he had predicted this, experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. Then, "Jonathan, it's done. I'm on my way." A few hours later, Jonathan arrived, looking half dead. He slumped into a chair beside Sunu. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Jonathan exhaled and held up a shaking hand. Final count, $50 billion. Sunu almost fainted. Jonathan looked no better. His hands trembled and his face was pale. "I don't even know how I made it here," he muttered. Sunu's mind raced. $50 billion. It was staggering, but this was just the beginning. He clenched his fists. "We need to prepare. The Asian financial crisis has only just begun." Jonathan lifted his head, eyes narrowing. "What's next?" Sunu smirked. "Malaysia and Indonesia will hold out, but Hong Kong won't. That's our next battlefield." Jonathan's tired eyes suddenly gleamed with newfound excitement. Sunu leaned in. But first, I need a favor. There's some land in Korea we need to buy. While sleeping, Jonathan finds himself trapped in a surreal nightmare. In his dream, he is suddenly snatched up by a colossal figure, a giant looming over him with an overpowering presence. The fear grips him so tightly that he jolts awake, screaming. His sudden outburst startles Sunu, who looks at him curiously before casually noting that they have finally arrived at their destination, America.
Let's take a look at how I got started using Sentry's new mobile session replay on a React Native application. I already had Sentry instrumented on this project, so all I had to do was bring in the mobile replay configurations. And now when I jump into the replays view in Sentry, I can see a session replay for every user that's interacted with my mobile app. I can watch a live view of how the user.
As they take a drive through the unfamiliar cityscape, Jonathan pushes away the remnants of his childish nightmare. Instead, his mind drifts back to his recent conversation with Sunu. He finds himself still puzzled over the man's ambitions. Turning to Sunu, he asks directly, "Why are you interested in buying land? Are you planning on getting into real estate as well?" Sunu, ever composed, responds without hesitation. "Real estate is just the beginning," he says, matter-of-factly. "From this day forward, we will expand into every profitable market. If it can make us good money, we'll be there." Jonathan listens carefully, but he can't help but marvel at how unshaken Sunu seems. Investing $50 billion was no small matter, yet Sunu speaks about it as if it were just another business errand. Jonathan frowns, feeling the weight of the situation pressing on him. "Are you sure nothing will happen to us?" he asks, his voice tinged with caution. Sunu merely smirks and gestures toward the meal in front of them. "Eat, you're too tense," he advises. "The first thing we need to do is split the company. Use your share as collateral, and if you want to join in, you can invest however much you wish." Jonathan exhales sharply. "How many companies are we talking about here?" he inquires, already anticipating a complex answer. "The more, the better," Sunu replies, his expression unwavering. "The structure needs to be so intricate that no one will be able to trace anything back to the original owner. Not even the employees working in the companies should fully understand what they're involved in." Jonathan leans back, processing the sheer scale of what Sunu is planning. "So, you're basically making a web of ghost companies," he mutters, shaking his head. "This almost sounds like a criminal conspiracy." Sunu chuckles at the remark. "If you're going to be working alone, it'll be tough. Once we reach Hong Kong, you should put together a team," he suggests. Jonathan raises an eyebrow. "You're actually acknowledging how hard I've been working?" he asks, half joking. "There was a point where I was so busy I didn't even have time to go to the bathroom." Sunu dismisses the notion with a wave of his hand. "Skill isn't the priority here," he says. "What matters is trust and loyalty." Jonathan thinks for a moment before nodding. "In that case, I already have a few people in mind." Sunu continues. "Once we see see results in Hong Kong will acquire 2 mid-sized investment companies. Find someone like Jeffrey Kay, an expert in the field. Jonathan's eyes widen slightly at the mention of such a high-profile name. "You're seriously aiming that high?" he asks, before smirking. "I won't complain. I'd love to have that guy working under me." Sunu nods. "We'll give them as much money as they need, but they won't be allowed to see the company's inner workings," he states firmly. "And once the company split is complete, one of them will be named Janil." Jonathan tilts his head. "Janil? Why that name?" Sunu's expression softens for a moment. "It's my father's name," he explains. "One day, I'll enjoy telling him all about it." The moment passes, and Sunu's focus sharpens once again. "For now, let's concentrate on work. The time will come when all the money in the world will be within our grasp," he says with absolute conviction. Jonathan absorbs his words, and as they continue walking, an idea takes shape in his mind. If Sunu is naming one of the companies after his father, then Jonathan will establish one called Jonathan Investment, a way to take the fame and recognition as a personal reward. He finally arrives at a designated location and pushes open the door to a room where several people are waiting for him. With a confident smile, he opens the person naming one of the company and conviction. Jonathan absorbs his words, and as they continue walking, an idea takes shape in his mind. If Sunu is naming one of the companies after his father, then Jonathan will establish one called Jonathan Investment, a way to take the fame and recognition as a personal reward. He finally arrives at a designated location and pushes open the door to a room where several people are waiting for him. With a confident smile, he steps forward and declares, "We've finally made it to the major leagues. Welcome, one and all, to Jonathan Investment." Meanwhile, Sunu reflects on a different kind of entity, one not of wealth, but of destruction. He envisions a monstrous creature known as the Abyss Ant, a relentless force that moves in swarms of thousands, consuming everything in its path. To him, this perfectly symbolizes hedge funds and their powerful supporters, ruthless entities devouring profits, always hungry for more. As he reads an article, he smirks at the realization that the money originally meant for others has now fallen into his own hands. It seems as if history itself has shifted into something even more visceral. He's certain that people have already noticed that a group swooped in and monopolized on the bot drop, taking the profits all for themselves. A voice interrupts his thoughts. "President?" someone calls.
It's Sulphur's month end.
I am not broke. I must have missed that one.
Bringing him back to reality. Sunu looks up. "Any updates on the contract conditions?" he asks. The man standing before him reports. Chairman Choi agreed to proceed under the specified terms. He's well known for amassing wealth through real estate, so he can be trusted on this matter. As the man continues showing him around, Sunu ponders the conditions for securing an office space. The deal includes a 2-year contract, with the entire down payment made up front in cash, but without his real name being attached to it. Naturally, this setup is completely illegal, but it's a mutually beneficial arrangement. The money will simply funnel into Chairman Choi's slush funds. ensuring that both sides profit from the exchange. Arriving at the space in question, the man gestures around. "It's already been cleaned," he says. "You just need to move in your belongings." Sunu nods, satisfied. Renting this office serves two key purposes: tight security and access to an ADL terminal, which will finally rid him of the slow internet speeds that have been a constant frustration. "All right," he says, pulling out the necessary funds. "I'll pay the rent now. If I deduct the cost of these 2 boxes, the amount should be just right." With that, the transaction is settled, and Sunu is left alone in the office. He looks around the empty space and thinks to himself, "Until Jonathan returns to Korea, I might as well make this place feel like home." He begins decorating, setting up a few personal touches. One of the first things he places on the wall is a drawing of a dog hybrid, an image that holds significance to him. As he steps back and examines the room, a sense of satisfaction settles over him. "This," he murmurs, "will be the first outpost." Jonathan has already begun reporting his progress, leaving the separation process to the startup companies, with 8 groups advancing to the next stage. Every time he achieves a milestone, he switches companies, ensuring that those discussing the previous separation remain unaware of his strategy. His sole focus is paperwork and numbers, with nearly 1,000 taxes accounted for, an inexplicably complex commission. However, it now seems he will have to handle the fund distribution plan himself. He inquires about Jeffrey K., and Jonathan confirms that he's in. Sunu emphasizes that prediction is their priority, but advises staying with CEO Donald Finn until the end. Jonathan wonders if this is just an investment strategy to catch Donald, and Sunu agrees it's far more than that. The economic bubble burst, triggering massive market shifts, but the real game changer was the database language they developed, which became an industry standard in the 1980s. It encompassed elements like dungeon monster skills and characteristics, but the most vital program linked back to the core company, Lee Sun's Guild. That database was a revolutionary force. If anyone had even glimpsed it, the war against the 80s could have unfolded differently. Sunu believes his intervention will alter history, so he must minimize fluctuations. He instructs Jonathan to prioritize prediction, ensuring Donald receives top recognition, salary, and stock options. However, if Donald chooses to leave, their hands will be tied. Sunu reflects and vows to seize all the power once held by the 8 virtues. Just as he prepares to leave, he notices his mother watching the news. One of his ghost companies is making headlines, but he isn't concerned. She asks him to bring this Django character over sometime, as she's heard of him but never met him. Sunu playfully fiddles with his hair and agrees. She also asks about his boxing, and when he offers to quit if she's worried, she reassures him that she's proud of his dedication to something difficult. With that, he departs, realizing he needs some pocket money. Arriving at the building where he rented a floor, Sunu pauses upon noticing employees from the public bank waiting for the elevator. He had secured the first floor to build Korea's premier online banking network. As they enter the elevator, he overhears them discussing their financial maneuvers and massive earnings. One remarks that it's almost godlike to predict such gains, while another notes a lack of market activity in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore, leaving only Hong Kong as a viable option. They decide to target Hong Kong to compete with their top rivals. Sunu smirks, knowing they will never succeed. Their operations have already splintered into countless ghost companies. Later, Jonathan arrives at Sunu's office, surprised to find it resembling a gym. He attempts to exercise, but ends up injuring himself, much to Sunu's disappointment. He also notices several swords in the office and asks if Sunu can even wield them. Ignoring the remark, Sunu asks for the documents he requested. Jonathan hands him a list of paper companies, complex and numbering over 1,000. Jonathan warns that if they lost this book, they wouldn't even know how much money was at stake. Sunu, unfazed, remarks that it wouldn't disrupt the cash flow. Jonathan insists that if anyone ever saw that list, they'd be sentenced to life in prison. Sunu dismisses the concern, stating that money can resolve everything, and right now, everything they do is about creating wealth. He requests to keep the original list, and Jonathan agrees. Sunu then opens a vault and instructs Jonathan to stop using corporate cards and rely solely on cash, like a true billionaire. Before parting, Sunu tells Jonathan to take the rest of the day off, calling it a small vacation. As Jonathan leaves, he spots a series of drawings behind Sunu and smiles. These sketches prove that beneath it all, Sunu is still just a kid. At DP Crump, one of the big 4 banks in North America, Emily from Jonathan Investments meets with a representative from the bank to make a deal. He remarks that this must be the new type of swap transaction everyone is talking about, and that he will review it, along with the others, but doesn't want to waste time. He wonders who would realistically accept this offer. Emily says he should take a closer look since Jonathan's investment is party B in the deal. The representative is shocked for a moment, but tries to hold in his laughter, stating that it's not his decision to make, and he'll have to get the person in charge to review it. The person in charge begins preparing the proposal, mentioning that if the deal goes through, Hong Kong's interest would skyrocket, but Jonathan's investment's revenue would start declining. He asks how much they want for it, and Emily responds with $500 million. The man chuckles but doesn't fully laugh, thinking the offer is crazy enough to raise the interest rate to 100%. He wonders how one could even make a profit under those terms. After reviewing the papers, he decides they will sign the contract, though he knows $500 million is a significant sum and there's no fraud. They shake hands, both thinking they'd never meet again. Jonathan meets with Sunu, telling him the attack preparation is complete and bets $5 billion, all in. Sunu says that once the debenture is over, it will be his turn. 2 months ago, Sunu arrived at Jonathan's office looking worse for wear, with a lot of trash beside him. He asks how much he lost, and Jonathan tells him he must already know, as figuring it out from the different dates and sizes was difficult. Betting on the global stock market without getting notices is quite tricky, especially with the stock market, excluding Asia, maintaining a slight upward trend. Sunu notes that even though it's hard to watch the damage that will be caused to the stock market, Jonathan looks at the screen with a depressive expression, remembering that he didn't expect to bet everything on Sunu's words. He recalls Sunu's past advice about raising the interest rate to 300% and how Hong Kong would collapse its own stock market. Jonathan doesn't want to consider that, but knowing Sunu, he probably is right. He wonders why Hong Kong would ever do something so crazy. Sunu replies that it's the only way to eliminate the traders. Jonathan wonders if they'll just give up that easily, noting that Hong Kong, along with Japan, are Asia's financial fortresses. Jonathan wants to charm Japan, but if he messes with them, the Japanese authorities won't sit idle. So, the only target left is Korea. Sunu agrees and explains that Korea implemented a financial policy that completely blocked off foreign investment and intervention. This caused the trade war in Southeast Asia, spreading fear. They also attacked Hong Kong, which had no chance against Korea, peaking in fear. Korean investors tried to withdraw, forcing foreign banks to collect their money rather than giving out loans, which caused Korea to collapse from the inside. Sunu adds that fear increases the chances of a country going bankrupt when traders pull out their long-held investments. This time, however, it will be much different. Sunu sits down, and Jonathan is surprised. Sunu suggests they enter the Hong Kong stock market and add pressure to it, with investments of 100 million to 1 billion in heavy industries. Jonathan notes that Hong Kong's stock prices are falling across all sectors except for banks. They need to reassure investors somehow. Jonathan points out that there are many investors catching up with them. Sunu worries that if they get caught, this round will be over, but it's too early for conclusions. He notes that they need to defend the New York company now. Jonathan jumps up, rushing somewhere, and Sunu considers two possibilities. Either they are being followed by traders attacking Hong Kong, or by people wanting to join in on their actions. Jonathan announces that the trade is starting now, and Sunu congratulates him, noting that they will soon see who's really following them. Individual traders could halt at any minute, but it's different for trading firms. Sunu hopes for the best and wonders if they can collapse Hong Kong with their own hands, changing history and making the future impossible to predict. A green light flashes on the screen, and they both sit down, exhausted from the ordeal. Jonathan curses, saying that the Hong Kong stock market almost tanked. Sunu suggests organizing everything according to the market end time, as today's stock market trade made them sweat a lot. Sunu dresses to leave, thankful that nothing went wrong. However, Jonathan screams out for him and falls to his knees, telling Sun that he is wrong. The DP Crump team is gathered around a table, laughing his
3 reasons why Japanese hate curvy women. First, in Japan, you're not allowed to stand out, but having a round body means exactly that. Next, Japanese women are told from the very beginning that their bodies just aren't meant to be curvy, so girls don't even think about developing them. Lastly, while Korea is slowly preferring curves, especially in anime, Japanese media still avoids them, so even if men are getting curious, the beauty standard probably won't change. 3 reasons why Japanese
es un carrusel, carrusel, la vida es un la vida es un carrusel, carrusel, la vida es un es un carrusel, carrusel, la vida es un la vida es un carrusel, carrusel, la vida es un
Excuse me. I'm so sorry. But what's your name?
I'm Bridget. Come walk with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where are you?
What's your name?
I'm